Hello, my name is Jennifer. Welcome to Stories for the Earth podcast. This is episode 19. I'm here with my co-host Ellen.
Hello, everybody.
Today we are going to have a discussion of the book Roots, Branches, and Spirits by H. Byron Ballard. Yes. And we
Subtitle, The Folkways and Witchery of Appalachia.
That's right. It is her latest book.
Some beautiful cover art. I just love it so much.
We're going to start out with just a brief discussion of the book. And this is, before I do that, I have an apology. This book, Braiding Sweetgrass, which we mentioned like several episodes back, I was calling it Braiding with Sweetgrass, so I just want to put a correction onto that because it is actually called Braiding Sweetgrass. Awesome book. Please check it out. I'm sure we will be doing this book at some point because it's amazing.
Now, back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Okay. According to Amazon, this is the description. The Southern Appalachians are rich in folk magic and witchery. This book explores the region's customs and traditions for magical healing, luck, prosperity, scrying, and more. Author H. Byron Ballard, known as the Village Witch of Asheville, teaches you about the old ways and why they work, from dowsing to communicating with spirits. Learn the deeper meaning of haunt, blue doors, magic hands for finding, and medicinal herbs and plants. Discover tips for creating tinctures and salves, attuning to the phases of the moon, interpreting omens, and other folk ways passed down through the generations. Part cultural journey and part magical guide, this book uncovers the authentic traditions of one of North America's most spiritually vibrant regions.
Pretty big, but pretty good summary.
I agree with all of that from having read the book.
And a little bit about Byron. She's local here. She's a teacher, a folklorist, and a writer born and raised in Western North Carolina. She served as a feature presenter at Sacred Space Conference, Southeast Wise Women's Herbal Conference, and Glastonbury Goddess Conference, and has spoken at Harvard and the University of North Carolina. Ballard is senior priestess and co-founder of Mother Grove Goddess Temple and the Coalition of Earth Religions for Education and Support. And she writes a regular column for Sage Woman magazine and is the author of 4 previous books. And she lives just down the road a piece here.
We're going to start with some quotes about like what this book is about and why she says that she has written it. In this book, I concentrate on the folk ways I know and practice. If you choose to make your way along with me, you'll find the voyage ragged and the wayfaring signs may not be entirely clear. But in the end, you will know something of this land, its history, and the folks that dwell here, whether in body or spirit. I think of myself as a forensic folklorist, a person who reads between the lines of legends to discover the truth of the myth within.
I think that's like the most awesome self-designation somebody could give. It's just like, yes, the forensic folklorist.
Yes.
Sounds mysterious and powerful. Pretty
definitely. Cool. It's a good like if I were to try to describe myself as something other than person, I think I'd have a hard time doing that. And then she also, which we didn't put a quote on, she also later describes herself as so you've probably heard of the song catchers, where people like came to this region to collect the songs and study their origins, because a lot of the folk songs here had their origins in like Scotland and all that stuff.
Europe, yeah.
And so they were called song catchers. Well, she describes herself as a spell catcher because she sort of studies and collects like spells and, you know, and their history and how they've changed over time. So that's also another title that she's given herself, which is also just as cool.
Yeah.
We will explore one of the most beautiful, misunderstood, and abused regions of North America, our region, Appalachia. Myth and history, heart and hands. For this region is old and new, a renewed weaving of an old coverlet. Perhaps I can tempt you into the sheer joy that is this vibrant and misunderstood culture, and engage you in a renewal of its old folkways in this news. I probably was new in trouble world. Put news. For my purposes and the purposes of this book, I will focus on my own flavor of this Appalachian buffet, the piece of that claims me, at least partially, and the piece I know best. But I will happily sprinkle what I know of all the other flavors so you can have a taste of them. I'm an urban homesteader, a gardener, a subsistence farmer, and what old-timers would have called a good eater. So, she's saying that she's going to focus on the things that she knows.
Speak to your strengths. That makes sense.
Yes, there's a lot. And then there's a lot of pieces that make up the whole picture of the area.
She's, I follow her online, and she's always posting insightful reflections and sometimes some funny things and sometimes stuff where she's just clearly, frustrated about the misconceptions that still so often permeate the larger American culture in relation to stereotypes of people from the South or people from the Appalachian region specifically. And she shared yesterday, I stumbled across an article wherein somebody was talking about how the stigma against the Appalachian accent needs to just go away, right? I mean, like, different cultures have accents, and we shouldn't shame people for sounding a certain way. It has no bearing on their intelligence inherently, And the article was really well written, but it was interesting timing, because just before I saw her post the article and read the article, I happened to be watching something where a commercial came on, and it was like a commercial for a fast food restaurant or something. But everybody in the commercial had the more classic Southern drawl, which might escape us a little bit more compared to other folks down here. But we know it, and people would know it if they heard it. And it struck me, because it's like this light bulb went off where I was like, oh my gosh. Upon hearing it, I realized you never hear that in commercials. So it was kind of cool, because it was like the first example of like it being normalized into the mass of society. I mean, fast food commercial, whatever, but still, I mean, the point is, it's like, look, here's people, it's just a family going about their business, and this is how they talk, and that's fine. And it was, that's how it was presented, matter of fact. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool, because maybe it shows that all the work and the effort that people like Byron are putting out there to destigmatize that kind of stuff is working, which is pretty cool.
That would be really cool. I mean, I remember, so, my family moved here about 30 years ago, and I was 9, and we was Yankees, from Brooklyn, New York City. So I just remember
culture shock.
Well, it really was, and it took me a minute to get used to everything, because everything was new. Of course, once I did, that was it. Like, I was just like, okay, I really did feel like, I got adopted by the region and the people, and I just felt
9's a good age to get brought into it. That's like such an age of wonder.
Yes,
you're ready and open to be exposed and kind of sucked into all the natural world you were about to get, dropped into the middle of.
It's really true. But I remember seeing what people from the North thought, in their reaction to us moving here, and also the reaction against to the people here to us being from the North. And I remember I was in 5th grade, and we were studying urban versus rural. Like whether you would live in a city or in the country, everybody raised their hand for living in rural. And I was the only one like, I'm going to live in urban, please. That was when we first moved. But there was definitely that stigma coming from the north. You can, when you live in New York, you're like, New York is the center of the universe and it's awesome. And, and I was 9, I had that attitude.
It's very ingrained up there.
Very ingrained, right? Like, let's move to the most boring place ever, guys. Come on. Like, why are we gonna move here? Like, I just, I just thought it was boring. And then when we came here, like the people were, because we're weird, like we're weird. We're from New York. We don't go to church, like we're just very odd. But like, I feel like there was a tiny bit of like, you guys are weird, okay. But then after that, like there was this real acceptance. And once they accepted us, it was like, okay, you're one of us. We accept you. And that was real cool. It was like, it felt like we're going to talk about the relationship with the land, but I felt like I formed a relationship with the land, but also formed a relationship with the people here. So I'm kind of adopted. I feel like I got adopted into the area. And I think that speaks to the spirit of the area and the people. And
kind of either welcomes you in with open arms or gives you a boot out the door, and a lot of that depends on how you're willing to meet it.
That is true. And I think we were, had a willingness to accept the area. And my parents literally like bought a hardware store in Weaverville, like an old-timey hardware store. And just like, we kept...
They're ready to cement themselves in there.
They were ready. They jumped all in. Like, I don't remember even why they decided to buy it. They were the last owners of Johnson's Farm and Home Supply in Weaverville, if anyone is familiar with that. It is now like Blue Mountain Pizza. It's next to the library. There's some other little shops in there. It's actually a historical building. It's got a little plaque on the sidewalk. And so like, yeah, it was all timey. We had a cat. It was dirty. It was awesome. I used to sit on the dirty floor and pet the cat. We used to play on, we sold cement. We sold feed. We used to like sit after school. We used to literally like sit on the cement in the shed and like hang out. It was just, so yeah, we kept the two. We didn't make any changes. My parents, they just came right in, bought it, and just like became part of the community, and like wanted to run it as is. And anyway, that's a long story, but yeah.
So you've started reading another book of hers too, right?
Yes, I did. I started reading Earthworks, Ceremonies, and Tower Time.
So what is your takeaway so far on that? Just to give a little more flavor to the listeners of what to expect from Byron Ballard.
Right. So this is her book before this one, and one that we were both interested in, and definitely one we might also cover in depth. So basically, she's talking about in this book how over time she's had developed this feeling of she's having this feeling of the time we are living in, and she was trying to put words to it, like, I have this feeling, I don't know what it is, it feels like this time is special, it's different.
And like other people were kind of like corroborating that, like, oh yeah, there's something weird about this time.
Yeah, so it wasn't just her. She was speaking to like other people in her spiritual circles in her life, and finally she came up with a name, and she named it Tower Time. She does tarot reading. So this is from the Tower card. If anyone's familiar with tarot, you know the Tower card. It's one of the major arcanas. It's a big card. It's a it basically means that like sometimes in life we build our lives, but we build it on very shaky foundations and things that are kind of like maybe we're not living like maybe we're not being honest with ourselves about things. And or maybe we're like in a relationship and then we suddenly realize, oh no, this is not what I want.
Not
Or
healthy anymore.
yeah, and you sort of, or like it could be something that, and you realize, well, I have to leave this relationship and it's very destructive. Then there's so the tower comes down, and then there's this period of rebuilding, and hopefully when you rebuild the tower, you're building it in a more authentic life, a life that's better for you and more truthful. But it could also be something very sudden, like the loss of a loved one, or like something outside of your control.
So that kind of makes it a bit of a dramatic experience.
It's dramatic. It can be, it's very dramatic. It can be sudden. And it's just like, you literally like feel the tower falling down. It's like, oh, that hurt. Although after the tower card is the star card, which is the hopeful card. So I really like that. So she feels
sometimes you gotta get through the collapse and the rubble to build something better on the other side.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it could be something with your health. It could be just so many things that you have to make these. It's a huge like tectonic shift. I mean, it's like, like the volcanoes and just all kinds of stuff going on. And I'm sure people who have had this experience know exactly what I'm talking about, because it's just, so that's what she feels like the kind of
the time we're living through. Yeah.
Is a shift. And it possibly maybe like violent, because we are trying to like separate from these ways that are not working for us and haven't been for a really long time, like patriarchy and probably capitalism and like a lot of these things and how we live our lives, the environmental crisis, all this stuff that like if we need to make changes, it's like if these systems come down that we're living with right now, there's a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
So like
have to be prepared to fill it with what we want.
Yes, exactly. And this is sort of a prep work for that, instead of just filling it with the same old stuff, because it's easier to do that. I'll read a quote. We're living in times when the top-down and toxic systems that some of us call patriarchy are in the process of collapse. Because I'm a lifelong tarot reader, the image that returns to my mind again and again is the tower, suite number 16. The vision of tower time has never been solely about collapse, which I want to stress. This is not a gloom and doom scenario. I invite you to explore the next steps, the best step. As the tower falls, it is incumbent on all of us who can act to create what I've been calling circles on the ground, active and well thought out alternatives to what we've come to know. So,
nice.
Yeah. And then, so I'm excited to read more.
That would have been all ready to cover that one, and then she snuck this other one in on us. So we pivoted to read the newest first, in order to get her onto the show to interview her. But definitely it'll be worth going back to check out all of her work. Her other books are Staubs and Ditchwater, A Friendly and Useful Introduction to Hillfolks Hoodoo, Asfidity and Mad Stones, A Further Ramble Through Hillfolks Hoodoo, although I believe that one might be currently out of print. I don't know, you might find some local copies in some local bookstores around Asheville, but that might be it.
Malaprops is currently out of it, so maybe like a used copy somewhere.
Yeah, floating around online, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Seasons of a Magical Life, A Pagan Path of Living. That's actually up and coming later this year. That's her next work in progress. And I'm sure she'll be able to excite us about what to expect out of that whenever we have her on the show in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
And she also has one called Embracing Willendorf, A Witch's Way of Loving Your Body to Health and Fitness. So, but getting back to Roots, Branches, and Spirits, what did you like best about this book?
so I really liked how she talked about her home. She was very passionate. She obviously cares a lot about this area and this region. And, you know, she talked about the way you can feel that you're there. If we're here, so we we have I guess an advantage already being here. But if you're with someone else, I feel like it really brings you here. So and the land and all the magic that makes the region, she's sort of like welcoming you into her home and giving you tea and telling you a story.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really great.
Yeah, I would agree. Her passion for the home place comes through. She's proud of it. She'll step up forthright and defend it, even if it means she's got to be a little tough. But she's very welcoming, kind of to calling you to the proverbial porch to spend some quality time. As long as you're respectful and willing to listen, she's a good storyteller. What did you like least about the book?
So I felt that it didn't, for me, I wanted her to go into more depth in certain subjects. The book touches on a lot of themes, and we're going to discuss a lot of them, but it doesn't feel like it doesn't go into depth enough for me.
Yeah, it's interesting when you read the summary of the book there at the beginning of this, and you're like, oh my gosh, it covers this and this and this and this and this and this and this, and it's like, whoa, that's awesome. And it's like, but the book's actually, it's small. It's a thin little book, so one wonders how so much could be covered. I think she gets you excited enough to delve into a lot of things, but she doesn't have the page space to go into it more. And I suspect that the book was written a little bit more as an easy read, like a grab and go introduction kind of to the region for people who might come across it, especially since so much of her work is dedicated to trying to destigmatize the Appalachian region and its longtime inhabitants. It makes sense to have something that would reach a broader audience who may or may not have enough patience to dig deeper,
Yeah.
It kind of clears up some misconceptions. It gives you some fun, personalized bits of history and lore. It might get people excited to want to learn more. And in that sense, I think that you and I, having grown up here, might not have been her primary target audience in a way, because I don't know about you, but I wasn't wholly unfamiliar with a lot of the subject matter. I did enjoy reading her take on it, her own sort of flavor of the storytelling. But it definitely, every single chapter, I would be like reading along and be like, yeah, oh, that was it? Oh, wait, that was it? Like, more, we must have more.
But I think that if it's a more of an introductory book, I think that's good. I don't think we're saying that that's bad.
No,
it's just like
I'd be curious to know how much this ties in with the others that I haven't read, because I'd almost wonder if it'd be good to start with this one and then, I guess I'll know by experiment, because I did start with this one and then I'll go back and read the others and be like, oh, okay, here's where I do get more,
Yeah, exactly. And then but also the part I didn't know was new to me was more of the folk magic area. So that part
which I think is what she digs more into in Staubs and Ditchwater and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So, yeah. You remember when you and I went to the Organic Grower School conference one year and she was doing a talk, and because it was more plant and farming focused, she did a whole talk on herbs. So she specifically highlighted some of the herbs used in the region. And she talks about all those same herbs in roots, branches, and spirits. So that's cool. There's that tie in there. But when she had to fill up that, hour to an hour and a half lecture that we saw, she actually got to delve a little deeper into each of those herbs. Plus there was the tactile experience of her like passing it around the audience for us to smell and touch and all of that, which is cool. But point being, she is very knowledgeable and very good at engaging people. So even if you have the same experience where you pick up this book and just wish that there was more, it's definitely worth pursuing her to find and get more,
And I still think there's plenty in this book, even if you are from the region, because I got to see it through her eyes, and my family isn't from here. So that does make a difference, I think. Yeah. So, and I do appreciate having an herbal background. I do appreciate the huge meaty herb section, and like how she does go into briefly how to make some salves and tinctures and stuff like that. So, and I think that, us being sort of steeped in the region, we think, well, maybe you don't need a more introductory book, but maybe you do, right? Like just because we still have that stigma, and I think a lot of this stuff is still new, and which is the whole thing where she's like, it's new and old, because we're like,
because I imagine there's a lot of people whose generations go back in the area, and they've distanced themselves from this bit of what might be in their own history. And so it's almost like it does have the potential to serve as a guidebook to reinitiate people into their own heritage, even if they're, dyed in the wool locals, Yeah,
I mean, she talks about the Appalachian diaspora, which is like people who have, or families have moved away from the region because of work, because of other reasons. And then she said, where did I read this bit? Oh my gosh. I was reading somewhere. I don't remember which book it was. But she met somebody in like San Francisco or somewhere in California.
Conference out there or something.
Yeah, was that in this book?
Yeah, somewhere near the end, I think.
Okay. I was like, where did I read that? Anyway, so she met someone from this region over there, and they had a big old chat about it.
They carry a fondness for it with them, even if they've gone far away. I mean, my own sister's moved to California, and I can attest to that. She's homesick more often than not. Even if it's just for the rain,
Oh gosh, yeah.
I was in the mountains where there was rain.
And seasons.
It's kind of bittersweet, reading things like this and hearing the local folk stories. And I think you'd probably agree, because on the one hand, I was born and raised in the region. You, for all intents and purposes, were raised in the region. You came here so young. And so I love to learn more about it. And I know a lot about it just from lived experience. But on the other hand, since my family lineage doesn't trace back in the region, I'm not a true local in that sense. And so I kind of end up sort of perpetually feeling like I don't exactly belong anywhere in particular. And but aside from that, it evoked, I think, what she would have hoped for it to do, and that is just that further curiosity of excitement and joy and appreciation for the sense of place, which is nice. It's nice to have that reminder that it's like you can take ownership of a sense of place. It doesn't matter ultimately where you're from, as long as you're taking hold of it with that respect and curiosity and joy, and really immersing yourself in it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. That's why I feel like I got adopted, and I don't remember, even though I felt really strong about like New York and Brooklyn and everything else, I don't remember feeling as strong as I do here, because I think this sense of place is bigger. Like number one, the landscape, the mountains are, even though like they're the oldest mountains, so they're the lower mountains, it doesn't matter. They still loom very large in the landscape, no matter what anyone's tried to do to disrupt that. And she talks about all kinds of like mountaintop removal and, all the
The way the
mines.
area has been abused.
Right. And it's still like the heart and soul still feels like it's still here, going strong.
What do you feel like you learned most from reading the book?
So even though the region has been through so much, it's just, it's not broken. It's still there. The spirit of the place is very strong. And also the people that call it home, I also learned you can do magic with anything. You don't need any fancy tools.
That was nice. Making it accessible was definitely something she's good at.
Yeah. And then the section on candy, where she made these spells with candy.
Oh, yeah, it was kind of like her trademark.
That was real fun. I was like, woo. Which I meant to go write down something more specific on that. But the candy section is real fun. Just basically, she talks about gravel. And
that part was really cool. That part stood out a lot to me.
It's just this common thing that everyone knows about. You don't even think about it. And then she calls it the heart and soul of the mountain. She just tells you what goes into making it and the importance it has for her and the importance in the region and then just a little history about it. And you just don't, it's part of the magic with everyday objects. And so she uses gravel, which is
like feel a sense of wow off of something that would otherwise seem it's so humble, the humble gravel.
It's just some rocks that we roll over with our cars, so we don't even notice that. We had a gravel driveway.
And it's like, wait a minute, I just drove over like a thousands of years old mountain piece.
Right, exactly.
I learned that I want to learn more. Like a lot of her introducing concepts, she, it might have been things that I already knew, but I want to know more on. Or even if it was new information, it was enough to scratch the surface, want to dig more. Like she brings up scrying as a divination method, but she doesn't go a lot into it in terms of forms and why it's done and where it originates and things like that. So just little things that piqued my interest but didn't give enough to fully learn from, has sent me down rabbit holes doing further research myself. Or, it might be stuff that when we interview her later this month, perhaps we could get her to delve further into some of these subjects for our own curiosity and for the listeners' benefit.
So who do we think we would recommend this book for?
I'd say it's definitely good to anybody, for anybody new to the region who might be just visiting or moving here. Anyone curious about folkways in general, add this as another piece of the puzzle to just cultural richness of America. Any beginning earth religion initiates looking for some interesting practice ideas would probably be inspired by the particular region's perspective that she offers. And then folks who've lived here a long time, like I said, but maybe just didn't realize or acknowledge all of the richness of the region and in their own cultural background, she kind of gives them a ticket to get back into it where, it otherwise might have been lost for them.
And I also thought about this. I thought it would be fun, as some sort of supplemental quotes and flavor that someone could add if they were literally doing a research paper on the area for school.
It gives a good overview enough to have a lot to pull from to do something like that.
Just some sort of academic piece. I thought that would be really neat. And because we were pulling quotes, I was like, oh, this reminds me of college. So I sort of felt like I was doing a sort of some research to a research paper without doing a research paper. But anyway,
doing a research talking instead of a paper.
A research podcast.
Well, and you did a good job at kind of summarizing the themes from the book. So one of the themes being the importance of being connected to land and taking care of it. So some quotes from the book that we liked that kind of encapsulate that theme are, She said, modern humankind, with its intentional quest to be separate from and superior to nature, is a disease vector. In our sad and impossible quest to separate from the land, history, and people, we lose so much that cannot easily be regained.
Yeah, and I think that
it's a wake-up call.
Yeah, and I think
our time is because we're getting disconnected, people.
I mean, not getting, we are.
Yeah.
I mean, in a large ways, we are disconnected. So I think it's just probably getting worse. And I think that a lot of people are looking to find some way to reconnect. And possibly, I think this book could help with that, for sure.
Good opening of the door.
Yes. Yes, and I like that she's straight up. Like, a lot of times she's like, no nonsense. I'm gonna just tell it how it is. And so in these little quotes, she definitely does. One of my favorite quotes is this one: broccoli is at least as sentient as chickens. It just isn't mobile. This is certainly my observation of the natural world, and invites us to consider our relationship with and within the world. She's like, well, I also think broccoli has a soul, as well as chicken. So, this is all about like how
we enter into relationship with other living things in general.
Yeah. Yeah, but I love the quote about broccoli, at least the sentient as chicken. Isn't mobile.
She goes on to say, it may be hard to understand the love we have for these places, even as we allow its destruction to continue, and to feel the grip of the land beneath your feet. You need to cultivate a relationship to it. So that kind of builds on that. It's taking it from that next step from, okay, fellow sentient living beings to sentient earth.
Yes.
For all the land is connected, just as all of everything is. The mountains are in friendship with the seas, the desert in love with the high prairie. As with all in nature, this gives humans an opportunity to invoke the overused notion of interdependence. We read that word in all sorts of places, but continue to see it expressed as an acknowledgement of our group's perceived superiority in the face of other. Interdependence is actually about our common vulnerability, not one group's ability to save the less fortunate and therefore lesser neighbors. Appalachian people used to know this and are now in the painful process of trying to relearn it.
I like that the mountains are in friendship with the seas and the desert is in love with the high prairie.
Yeah.
So all the regions
have an interdependence with one another.
It just sounds like in this quote she's saying the Appalachian people themselves have lost things and are trying to relearn, not just people coming into this region learning, relearning stuff from the past. The people here are also looking to relearn stuff from their past.
She says, we may follow the cycle through ritual and ceremony, but for many of us, it's become merely symbolic and the connection is thinned out or broken. Those of us who are urban dwellers can blame our surroundings, that there's not enough green in parks and street trees, and we stay inside when we're home from work and we read books and meet our cyber communities through screens, and we dream of intentional communities that we might create someday. Earthen or green buildings, fields of organic vegetables, chickens with artisanal chicken tractors, and neighbors who follow the same basic spirituality that we do. And what could be better? And we continue to live in apartments and condos and once a year attend our favorite summer festival where we dance awkwardly around a bonfire and dream our dreams.
I think it's dream. I'm sorry. I think it's supposed to be dream our dream.
Oh, that would make a little more sense. Ream our dreams is a little
like, I was like trying to hold the book open and type, and I was just like, and then I guess ream is actually a word, so the spell check didn't get it in. I think this quote is all about like sort of like we dream all these dreams, but we don't actually do them. And she's saying that we can.
Yeah, I mean, she goes on to say, there's no reason we can't pursue a relationship with the world around us, whether we live in a suburb or an inner city or apartment or a dorm. we can make it real with the landscape around us. We enter into enchantment that lies under the concrete and that flows from one block to the next, even though it's through the crosswalk.
Yes, I did that one this morning. That
So
quote.
good wraps it up there.
Right. So like, I live in an apartment. I mean, I'm trying to get a house. Everyone wants to move into this region. So it is actually like the most expensive region to live in North Carolina. So that's fun. But currently I live in an apartment. And I have 3 plants. I have a balcony though, and I have 3 plants. So
anyway, you can bring that green in.
Well, yes. And you can also like do houseplants. Just if you can't, like, if you don't have a garden space, you know, and it's just like the whole like symbolism behind the dandelion coming up through the crack in the sidewalk, right? Like, or the tree roots like busting up the sidewalk. I love it when they do that, you know, and it just breaks through the concrete.
Nature is strong.
Yes. So it's you know, we work so hard to try to ignore it, but you know, it's right there. And so like, yes, you can have, I mean, even in the cities, there are parks, you know, there's green stuff. And I think that we just need to work on trying to see it more. Of course, it's easier when you live in a place where nature is bigger. It's been a while since I've been to Brooklyn. I've heard it's hip and awesome now. When we moved, it was not that way. So our block had like 0 trees on it, but we did live by a park. So yeah, so I really like this quote. It's like, no excuse. That's what it sounds like. In a nice way.
I find it where it is.
Right. It sounds like it's nicely put, but it sounds like the undertone is like, and there's no excuse. Okay, so the next sort of themes that I felt was a theme was sort of this region as roadmap back to the time that help us reconnect to the land. So, and then that this place has changed, but not as much as other places. It's been be able to hold on to a lot of what more of the past and more of what sort of makes it a region somehow, even though it's been abused so much. So many people, including those outside the region, many people, including those outside the region, are looking to older traditions of herbal healing, farming, and home and food preservation for clues about proceedings to not only live, but to figure out how to survive in the Appalachian Mountains future. So I think people are looking, I think there's a real interest, and maybe there's a reason why so many people are moving to this area. There's a real interest in learning about the past in order to figure out how to proceed.
Yeah, learning history is a good thing.
How to like, because we've got a lot of issues that need to be solved. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of issues. It's just in the environmental issues, or maybe just a better way to live, because everyone's like, well, not everyone, but a lot of people are like overworked, overstressed. These systems we know just don't really serve us, unless you have a lot of money, and then, you know, whatever, you don't have to work 6 jobs or whatever. The next quote is, this land is a holdover to another time, one of kindred bonds that are almost unbreakable, where blood feuds can transcend generations, and where old women carry secret knowledge. Here your mother's mother might hold the mysteries of birthing, healing, and death. Here midwifery is a set of skills held with humility as well as a strange sort of pride. Here women can go into the weedy edges of a church parking lot, a tattoo joint, or a fast food parking lot and gather green plants for a remedy or for supper. Side note about that, you should not eat greens that you have collected from a parking lot. if you can help it, you want to have it be at least 50 feet from any kind of road, and just some wild crafting notes there, and make sure you know that the land has been sprayed or not. Okay. But you can find them. These skills are much needed in the shifting chaos of the world, and we will go in search of some of them in these pages as it is made manifest right before our faces, hidden in plain sight.
That's nice.
Yeah, so that's more about like seeing the dandelion in the crack in the sidewalk and knowing, hey, I can eat that dandelion.
Yeah, it's like take it a step further. You're appreciating its resiliency, and then you're also like, oh, but this could have bigger meaning, especially in a a needful scenario.
Yeah.
But so that kind of leads into the next theme.
Well, I just want to
identified. Oh yeah.
I just want to say one more thing. I feel like sometimes I get the sense that like it's like an overlay. Like the area is like the past is still here, but the future is sort of a thin layer on top, and it kind of bleeds through. Like the past sort of like comes up and says, "Hello, I'm still here." So I just want to say, like, it's just you sort of scrape off that present, and then you can get what's underneath, like
there's still some richness there,
like a carpet, and then you find the hardwood underneath it, and you're like, this carpet sucks. I mean, not all the present sucks, so but yeah.
But the carpet wouldn't be there if it didn't have that firm foundation under it.
Oh, that is true. That is true.
So the next theme being resiliency and respect, and some good quotes that kind of touch on that are the term she I don't know if she coined it. I've not heard it anywhere else, but I think it's very apropos. Cultural strip mining, the act of extracting folkways from a culture while returning little or nothing to it. People from outside the culture suck up what they find appealing and find ways to monetize it, and then they just let the rest fall away or die beneath the wheels of progress. The culture gains little from the exchange and gives up its precious materials that leave it weak in some ineffable way. She says, I am of this place, and that is often in sharp contrast to those that have come here in more recent times. My work is about these mountains and of these mountains, and these pages will turn on those traditions. The love of this place is wide as well and deep, and new people who understand this land have come to gradually absorb the energy of the region. Some of us are choosing to teach and write about this place in order to mitigate the cultural strip mining and disrespect that might be a temptation for some. To look down your nose on a place where so much is willingly shared is to show yourself ill-mannered, greedy, and small.
That's right. You better show some respect.
Let that be a lesson to you. Like,
right.
Seriously.
Back down, and then, very Southern. It's sort of like polite.
Mm-hmm.
So very subtle.
Polite, but very firm.
So then, and we definitely already touched this, magic in every day, the idea of using what you have around you.
Mm-hmm.
So in my spiritual tradition, we talk about a veil between the worlds of matter and spirit. We know the power of liminal spaces, of being neither here nor there, but betwixt the two. When you are betwixt, you have a foot in both worlds and can move from one to the other. In walking that wobbly line between magic and the everyday, I realize there isn't a firm boundary between the two places. I've begun asking festival goers to stop referring to their daily lives as mundane or mundania in order to re-enchant their everyday lives and the world around them. I gently remind them that people have been practicing all this witchery for generations and practicing it where they live, not saving up for a special weekend with co-religionists. The work that puts beans on your table may be bank teller, but there's no reason why that can't be infused with magic and intention. I've definitely never heard that term, something called bank teller, but I'm assuming it just means every day.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess she's kind of saying like the work that you do might be something quote unquote mundane, like I'm a bank teller. You
Right.
don't feel that great telling people, yeah, that's what I do, because you're like, that's not who I really am. But she's saying essentially there's no reason why those everyday things can't still be infused with intention. And that's an important lesson I feel like I've had to really make a point to concentrate on in life, because if you get too dreamy of, oh, I wish it was like this and I want it to be like this, to the point that you're disassociating from the here and now and what you can maybe have some influence over, you're going to end up really depressed. You're just going to end up spiraling into like, oh, nothing's how I really
Oh
want it to
gosh.
be. Da, 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 da.
I'm good
And
at doing that.
you lose your agency. You
You
lose
do.
your whatever, you're giving your power away essentially. Whatever little crumb you can hold on to infuse the meaning, because meaning, I don't know, that's a big philosophical debate. Is meaning inherent? In some ways I could argue yes, but meaning's also relative to your perception, right? So to some
Yep.
extent you have to infuse the meaning into your day to day. If you look and look and look and you can't find it, then what is it that you're not putting in to gain it, I guess, if that makes sense.
or you need to try to find things that there are things. I mean, I feel like everybody has things that mean something to them. No one's just devoid of something in their lives. I mean, maybe you feel like that, and that's being depressed. I feel like when I'm super depressed, I just feel like everything's stupid and meaningless and not worth anything. And but it's not true. I've got so many things around me that mean things, and it can be hard, because I definitely work at a job where like there's no windows at my work.
You're in the underworld.
I'm in the underworld, and I really do feel like, going back to being betwixt and in the liminal space, I really do feel like I'm in the liminal space in my job, which is really weird because it is completely considered, you can definitely term it as mundane, but yet I work straddling 2 days. Like I work from 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. So my day is literally like in between 2 days. And I definitely work in this apart place. And it's just like a bubble, like a little kind of, I don't know, but so no, they didn't paint stars on the wall, on the ceilings of the warehouse, which I wanted them to do. Come on, people. Let's put some like Christmas lights up there. No, they didn't do that. So, but still, like, even when you think about what I said about like it being between, then it gets to be a lot more magical than I'm just in a warehouse picking orders and stuff like that for people who order online.
An example of finding the little fragment of wow factor, even in the most, plodding along situation, you were still able to go, oh, whoa, that's I'm between 2 days.
Yeah, like it just, and you really feel it when you get out of work and or like I can't, like when we're communicating and I'm like, you're like, did you mean this day? And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I don't know what day it is. Like, I mean, I don't even work like Monday through Friday. I work like Sunday through Thursday. So it's just all weirdness. But like some jobs are sometimes it's easier to find a meeting, and sometimes it's harder. And I've definitely been in a place where it's much harder. I've also been in a place where it's easier, where everything means something, and you're like, whoa.
Well, she kind of had a good quote that sort of grounds that down, because she said, these are the basic tools of human beings, whether they practice any kind of quote unquote magic or not. The head is vision, imagination, deep thought, and intention. The heart is the investment of the emotion into the act of creation, doing the job with love and compassion. And the belly is the will, the strength, and the guts to bring the intention to fruition. These powerful tools work for art and parenting and partnering and magic and for everything, really. So you got your vision, you got your heart, and you got your will and the gut strength, you know. And it's like, people, if people can just think of that, those inherent qualities in humanness as being sources of power, you know, then a lot can transpire from there. You know, the potential is there.
And I think a lot of people get caught up where, you know, we're talking about agency. And I think, you know, I mentioned this before, you know, I was working a job and it's like, well, it could be worse. And I was like, well, it could be better. So, you know, it's where you put your energy, where you put your focus. It's like, hey, you know, it's fine to be like, hey, this is how it is right now. But it's also like important to be like,
to realize that it could change.
Right.
Like,
and
yeah, there has to be that openness, I guess, to like precipitate that something could change.
Right. It opens the door, right? Like, hey, it's not always going to be like this. It's going to be different. It's going to change. It has changed in the past. And like, think about what you want. Like, hey, I want this type of job, and you can keep thinking about it and dreaming about it. And I think that not only does it help you get through like a hard situation, but it puts your focus on the future, put your focus on something. It just, yeah, it reminds yourself that things can change. And it also like helps you recognize when that opportunity comes, that that's it. It's like, okay, that's it. I'm gonna jump on that because that's the direction I'm looking for. I'm gonna go for that. You know, because we're all like, I feel like we're all kind of walking along and we're looking for those paths, you know. It's like, I'm on a path, but I need to turn off at this exit. I need to go here, I need to go there. And it's easier said than done. So I know it sounds easy.
Well, because sometimes when you're stuck in the process, you just feel like your wheels are spinning and spinning and spinning, and you're like, I want to do something else, but what is it? Oh my God. And then all of a sudden it'll be like, oh,
all the time. And it's sometimes years. Like, it's sometimes years where I'm just like, oh gosh, I need to get out of here. I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting, and I'm impatient, and I'm just like, I know what I want to do and be, and I can't, how do I get there? But also, like, sometimes life feels like it's got like its own ideas. So, you know, things happen that you're just like, okay, like, I mean, or they don't. Like, sometimes you have an idea and for some reason it just doesn't happen and you don't know why. You're like, okay, I put all this energy into it, but somehow it's just not happening. And then you just ask a friend if she wanted to be interviewed, and suddenly you have a podcast. So not that we don't have more work to do on this podcast, but like, it's just something that happened and exploded in ways that has, I'm like, okay, we're going in this direction then, you know. So sometimes it's not something that you quite intended, but you
already were laying the groundwork. You know, you were laying the groundwork for that to become a possibility, whether you were aware of it at the time or not. You know, that kind of stuff's always going on in that sense. You know, it's like, yes, there's free will and agency, but how much is it that we're just, you know, kind of doing subliminally, just plodding along, and then it's like, you know, no matter what, you're always laying the groundwork for something. So I guess in that sense, it's just a question of how much we're capable of becoming conscious enough of it to try to at least have some dictation of where it ends up going, and so that it doesn't just run away with us.
I think that's where the magical folk magic comes in, and it's maybe a little more way of focusing in on what you want and sort of
kind of grounding.
How to get there and all that stuff.
Well, as her final theme brings it all together, I think a lot is the importance of that sense of place. So some good quotes from the roots, branches, and spirits on that. She said, I ponder the concept of the spirit of place, of all things being ensouled, each of us rambling betwixt the worlds of matter and spirit. I sat in my yard and looked around. Everything in my view had a soul, to my way of thinking, and was sentient in its own way. And my eye caught a few things that felt like they were leaning in to tell me more, or maybe to listen. There's magic inherent in the soil and forest and mast. My thoughts went from one to the other, and I found myself straightening my back and listening intently, as though feeling that my way to some place I didn't quite know. So you kind of having to allow the time to have it open up to you, you know?
Yeah, just take the time to sit, and it's going to sound hokey. Be with nature, form a relationship. I guess that's what she's trying to. This is maybe, just sort
like it's there. It's always there.
Yeah.
If we just pay attention.
Yes. And this is how she does that.
Enlivening that quote unquote normal everyday stuff of nature, because she says, soil is tiny bits of stone with rotted leaves and sticks tossed in, and carcasses of insects and small mammals with enough water and heat to make it friable. It passes through the gut of innumerable earthworms, and those castings become soil, and even a poor soil consists of some extraordinary alchemical potion made up of many tangible pieces of the organic world. It's like those kind of little things are like just taking something that's just there all the time, so often taken for granted, and really like, oh my goodness, all of this stuff has to occur and be a part of it for this thing to even exist. And wow, yeah, that is kind of magical. That is like the alchemy of nature.
It's like an object in your house that you don't even think about, but then you find out that in order to create this object was some extraordinary process. And you're like, wow, that object looks different now. Maybe I should not put my extra change in.
Seeing it in a new light.
Yeah. So.
Oh, that dish is actually worth $1 million. Maybe
I should
pour my pennies in it.
So even when I was thinking, okay, I see the natural world, I see it, I can, but then she hits me with this thing about soil, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm looking at soil. I gotta look closer. So, yeah.
And then on the bigger scale of the forest, she says, consider the magic inherent in the forest world, magic that comes down to us through folk and fairy tales. There's always more to the forest than meets the eye. From the canopy above to the mycelium layer in the soil, there are so many things unseen and so many possibilities for magic and for danger. And she kind of wraps up, we'll wrap up the concept of the sense of place with her quote where she says, this old land is filled with liminal places and gives rise to ballads and tales. In these pages, we work through our harsh and complicated history on the strings of a fiddle and the stitches of a quilt made of scraps and with words on paper, each one of us as liminal as the hedgerow with complicated histories and tattered souls. So then it's kind of like a nice pairing of all of the different little pieces and ways that humans contribute to that bigger picture. Because sometimes I think you end up in this situation where it's like, yeah, the humanity could do with a good dose of nature awe. But if you get stuck in the nature awe to the point that you're just gonna completely dis-humanity in a way, then it's like you're not recognizing, again, that word she used, interdependence, where it's like, well, what do we have to contribute back into it? That's the thing. Instead of just taking and taking and taking, how do we actually fit into the whole wheel of life mechanism, because we're part of it too, and we have just as much ability to be part of that alchemical process as the earthworm does, and we're not any better and they're not any better. It's all part of that same contributing effort to keep life sustained on this rock.
Throughout the book, the fact that the land is important and the people are important and they're important to each other. The land has been through a lot, and so has the people. So they're just sort of it's like we're in this together, where you have these shared histories, and I think it just sort of knits the two together.
Well, I mean, she's certainly invested in the sense of place of where she's from, but I think that's important to consider, you know, for anyone. Like, you know, I used to like, maybe it's because my ancestral line is scattered to the four winds. I don't know, but I used to just like be like, I need to go, but I didn't know where I was going. And I traveled around the country and never found like, oh yes, this is the place to land. And then the next thing I know, I came full circle back to my home state, and I'm like, oh yeah, you know, like, but the point is like, you can, every place is a place, you know. I mean, like there's something to be tapped into. It's just a matter of looking and finding it. And yeah, I ended up full circle, but what I know now is that anywhere that I had landed, if I would have invested myself into it, I could have made the house a home, so to speak. I could have put roots down, and I could have found that sense of place, because it has a lot more to do with how we sink our roots in, and what we give back to where we are, and what we learn from where we are if we're paying close enough attention, you know. So that being said, everybody doesn't have to flock here.
Oh, we have some
own backyard and figure out what the history is, you know.
At least let me have a house. Just save a house for me and my cat and my husband that we can afford. Okay, like that's the magic we need to work right now. Just like 30 minutes out of town, that's fine. Just, you know, just something that's affordable and not falling down, and things we might want in it, like a dishwasher and a bathtub and all stuff. Okay, all stuff. But you know, everyone can visit. But yeah, I lived actually on the coast of North Carolina for a couple of years, and I also really fell in love with that area. So, and I've never lived on the beach. I didn't grow up on the beach, and I was just like, oh, sometimes I miss it. Sometimes I miss the beach, the area, the way that the wind always blows, and just the saltiness, and I don't know, just.
And that's cool. You got that experience too, because I hate to say it, but probably sometime in our lifetime, a good majority, if not all, of those Outer Banks aren't going to exist anymore. Yeah. So the fact that you got to live on them and really immerse yourself is like a little piece of history that, you know, you might, you know, sooner or later people won't be able to have anymore. So
yeah, it's pretty sad, but it also means that, hey, the beach might be in Raleigh.
Be closer to
be closer. Okay, sorry, that's a real weird way of looking at it.
Glass half full.
Glass half full. There we go. Hopefully we won't get there. But I just want to speak to this connecting with place, because actually I feel like, because I was thinking, well, maybe it's just me in this place. We connected so strongly, but then I connected to the beach, and then also like I was in Texas with my parents for 4 months. And I really did connect with Texas, which is really weird because I never thought I would do that. But like, you know, in Texas is this big, big sky. The sky is the big thing, you know, it's like, and then instead of the mountains. So like, it just really captures you. You're like, oh, wow. So I think that, yeah, there's a sense of place everywhere. It goes back to where you connecting with nature, whether you live in the city or
you have to make that choice to engage, and then you're like, oh wow, here I am.
This is a way of looking at things, and I think that like we're not often taught that. We don't know how to see the world. But again, like I keep coming back to Western North Carolina. I keep coming back here. I've you know, and I do feel like this place is more important to me personally than like the other places. Like it's grabbed me, and it's adopted me, and it says, "You're not going anywhere." Okay, give me a house then. Come on.
Well, you had a really good thing to wrap it up with, which was coincidentally how she wrapped up the book. So
yes, this is from the conclusion. I hope this book has gone a ways to help the reader understand and appreciate the ways that we've practiced for many generations. Ways with food, music, homesteading, and magic. There's much more to know, of course. We merely brushed the surface of so many things, and I hope your natural curiosity will lead you down the rabbit holes that hold the most interest for you. And I hope that you have learned of the land and the diverse folks who dwell here in body or in spirit. So I thought that was really a really great way to wrap it up. I guess that concludes our discussion on roots, branches, and spirits. I hope everyone out there enjoyed it. Yeah, have any questions or comments or anything, you can, if you're watching this on YouTube, please leave it in the comment section down below. And I believe you can also email us at storiesfortheearth@gmail.com. We are going to have Byron Ballard on, so it'll be our next
interview
episode.
Well, no, the next, coming up immediately next is we will be welcoming special musical guests.
Wait, are we doing Holy River next?
Yep.
Oh, I got confused.
That episode will air on the 21st, Wednesday the 21st. So Holy River is a really great earth-centered sort of folk music duo. And they will grace us with some of their lovely sounds for the story portion of our monthly podcasting. And then Byron Ballard will be filling the interview portion
on the
on the
28th.
Mm-hmm, yeah, okay. So we'll get a chance to talk with her about maybe a little bit more background of all of her books and her work in general, and what else she would like to share regarding this new publication, and maybe get her to answer some questions from our curiosity. The inquiring minds want to know.
We're gonna dive deep. It's gonna be meaty, because that's what we do here. Meaty. We try to be light. We try to be surface, but no, we just okay. I'm babbling now.
But it's pretty exciting. This is some big stuff coming down the pipe.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm nervous, but I am thrilled that I'm thrilled to have both Holy River and Byron Ballard on our little podcast here, and it's it's really exciting. Thank you for watching. Please check us out on Anchor. If you'd like to support us, you can hit the support button on Anchor for $1, $5, or $10 a month, which will help us greatly after COVID, where we can take this little podcast on the road and really be able to explore outside the region. So we're really excited about that. And we have Instagram, we have a Facebook group, we have a YouTube channel, and then of course we're on Anchor. So all of those links are either in the show notes or down below if you're watching our beautiful faces on YouTube. Episodes come out on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Wednesday of every month. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Get ready to hear some awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thanks for joining us.
Go dabble in some folk ways and witchery now.
Yes, that link will also be in the description. So if you want to check out this book here, Roots, Branches, and Spirits, and all other Byron's books, I will put links. I'll put links to Amazon. I'll put links to our fabulous local bookstore if you want to support local bookstores. And then maybe if I can find a used copy of her out-of-print book, I'll also put a link to that. So you can go down the rabbit hole. Oh, and also I want to put some like interviews that she's done before down there too. So if you really, really want to dig deep.
Yeah, and her own podcast for that matter.
Right. I forgot. Byron has a podcast too. So that'll go also in the link. So lots of stuff. And you can do some preliminary research and be ready for the interview coming up. So
and as a closing regional colloquialism, I'll just say that if none of this interests you, if it's just past the point of registering in your mind, and you're just like, oh, these crazy hill folks and da 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 da. Well, all I can say is, bless your heart.
Bless your heart. That's right.
Catch you next time, everybody.
Okay, bye.